إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah, and my peace and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. Today, inshallah, we'll finish the washing of the deceased, and also we will finish the shrouding of the deceased. And we will talk about the important things that is for the person who is going to wash, what he needs to know, and what he needs as well to avoid in his washing. So first of all, we say that the person, when he dies, it is incumbent, it's an obligation upon a group of Muslims to make his wash, or to give him his wash. So this is a communal obligation. So if there's nobody to wash him, everybody will be sinned. So somebody has to wash him. This is including as well those people who die through a pandemic like the COVID-19. But maybe in circumstances will not be able to give the full wash. So for example, that this person, he had died through a situation where that his body is so much burnt that if we're going to wash, we might lose some of his limbs. In such a case, we will do dry ablution, which is tayammum. Or that this person, that and as soon as you open the body, there will be contamination. So we cannot give the wash. So we bury him without a wash and also without a tayammum, because we can't make tayammum except of the body. So if we expose the body, okay, then we cannot use the tayammum, nor we could use the wash. But if we are able to bring the body out and there's no contamination, and that the water will not affect the limbs and the flesh will not start falling, then we will wash him. Otherwise, we will give him tayammum. So if the body will be exposed to danger in terms of that he will start losing his flesh if we use the water, then we'll use dry ablution. But if we cannot expose the body for any certain reason because of contamination, then we don't make tayammum, don't make wash. We just do what we can, which is the shrouding. Here, the complete obligation of the Prophet ﷺ, when he said that it is obligatory for the community to make the wash, we have the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, اغسلوه بماء وسدر, wash the person with water and lot. The lot, which gives it the fragrance, gives it the smell. And also the Prophet ﷺ, when he said to the women who were washing his daughter Zainab, he said to them, اغسلنها ثلاثة, that is, wash her 3 times or 5 or 7 times, or even if it is needed more than that. So this wording, wash, that is a command. Now, when we wash, we have to bear the following things. First of all, and that is to wash the deceased 3 times, okay, as a minimum, or more. Now, when we say more, it doesn't mean it has to be, for example, according to the, it could be, for example, according to the dirt. So if the 3 wash is not enough, we give them an extra wash. Now, this is based upon what the person or the people washing him to determine whether he needs another more than the 3 or not. Now, if he's needing more than the 3, this is the second thing we say, then it makes it 5. It makes it in an odd number. So this one we have to bear the odd number. So if it's not 3 is not enough, we go to 5. 5 is not enough, we go to 7. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith, when he said to the women to wash his daughter, he said, wash her 3 or 5 or 7 or more than that. More than that means an odd number, depending upon what the person is washing. He thinks, does it need more washing or not? Right. The third time, and I believe as well, the odd helps as well, because when we have an experience regarding the washing, you see, when we see that we need another wash, we wash with soap, okay? And we have to make the last wash, which is the third thing, which is to make it with, lot, which is the lot is the camphor, okay? Something which is that with the smell. So because of that, we need to have them sort of another, another wash. So if we think that the body needs more washing, we wash it with soap. So after that, we give him another wash, which is the last one, and that is the fourth thing that we need to do, and that is to make sure that there is camphor somehow, which is to give this to the deceased a smell. So let's just talk about them again. That's number one. We need to bear the following. That is, wash him 3 times. Number 2, to wash him, if you want more than 3 times, it has to be odd number. Number 3, we have to use some lot, which is now the soap, can be a substitute for that. And number 4, the last wash has to be mixed with some kafur, which is the camphor, or any perfume which is free of alcohol. Number 5, that is if the person has got braids, okay, we have to undo them and wash them properly. And then after that, number 6, to comb the hair. And if it's a woman, number 7, then we make this we'll make the hair to be braided into 3 plaits. 3. And number 8, to start always when we wash with the right and also the places of wudu, which means we make him first wudu and then we start with the rights. Number 9, the person who takes the priority of washing the male is a male, and the priority for washing the female is the female, except if what is being made as an exemption, as we're going to see inshallah in a minute. First of all, what is the hadith regarding all of that? Hadith Atiyya radiyallahu anha wa ardaha. She said, we have entered upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had entered upon us, and we were giving his daughter Zainab a wash. So the Prophet of Allah, he said, wash her 3 or 5 or 7 or more than that if you see that it is fitting. And she said to him, Messenger of Allah, does that mean witr, odd? He said, yes, odd. And let you make in the last wash a camphor. The camphor now is, you can bring the camphor itself, or you can bring the, as I said, alcohol-free perfume. If you have finished from the washing, then tell me. And when we finished, we told him. So he gave us his haqwa. Haqwa is the izar, which is the bottom half. He gave him that, the bottom half that the Prophet he had gave him the haqwa, which was next to his body. And then he said, ash'irnaha iya, make it close to her skin. That means it would be the first layer of the shroud. So when he shrouded, it will be the first one. And ash'irnaha iya. So because the Prophet ﷺ's items are very special, and the Prophet of Allah had given that as a specialty to his daughter, just like he's given his staff to one of the companions, as we're going to see later on when we talk about it. So the Prophet of Allah had given his haqq, okay, to his daughter. Then Prophet ﷺ left, and she said, we have combed her and we made 3 plaits for her. Okay, actually in some of the narrations says that we have undone her, plaited hair, we've washed it properly, and then we plaited it to make it 3 braids, and we put it behind her. Okay, and then the Prophet ﷺ told us, amongst what he told us, she says, start with her rights and also the places of the wudu. So alhamdulillah, now we know the etiquettes regarding the washing complete. We're going to now demonstrate that in a way that you understand how to wash. So if we have a deceased now, okay, in front of us, okay, so now we come to the practical issues which is not mentioned in the book. That is not mentioned in the book. So first of all, when we wash the person, we strip him out of his clothes. So completely stripping him out of his clothes. So the first thing, because you can't wash the person unless you take him out of his clothes. Now, you could cut them if you wish with a scissor, all right? So make sure that he's completely naked. And at the same time, you'll have a piece of cloth or something to cover his awrah. Make sure that his awrah is covered all the time. If it's a male, his awrah is between the navel and the knees. And if it is a female, okay, then it is all her body's awrah from the top, just her to show the up of her chest, and all the way to half of her leg, so just beneath her knee. Okay, that should be covered. Even if there are women they're washing, all of that has to be covered. So again, the male's awrah is from the navel to the knee. The navel is not an awrah, the knee is not an awrah, but you make sure that it's covered because you might be moving it. So whatever is underneath the navel is the awrah, and whatever is above the knee is the awrah. And you make sure that that piece of cloth is thick, like a towel, because once water goes onto it, it will stick to the body and will show the awrah. So you need to make sure that the awrah is covered. Now, there is an exception where the awrah doesn't have to be covered, and that is when the husband on his own washes his wife, or vice versa. The wife washes her husband, and there's nobody else except for them. So if it is the case, then there is no awrah. And we believe that the husband is entitled to see the awrah of his wife, and even though the death will not make the, for example, the marriage to cease. Now she's not his wife anymore. He's not allowed to look at her awrah. No. Just like the Prophet ﷺ, as we're going to see, had made it permissible for him to wash Aisha and also for Aisha to wash him, then that means after the death, still the relationship between the husband and wife existing. Also, when we strip him out of his clothes, we tilt the person a bit, just from his head, and we start tapping on his belly, okay, on his abdomen, just to make sure that if there is anything there to come out, to be released from his anus. So we tap slightly, not pushing too much. So if anything comes out, we come out, and as well we wash it. Make sure that we wash that if there's najasa came out. So that's another issue which is not being mentioned in the book. This is to do with, the practical way of washing the deceased. Okay. Now we're going to the text. Basically, Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah says that this person is to be washed by a khirqa. Khirqa means a loafer or a piece of cloth. Okay, and you wash with it, so you could use it to rub onto the body of the deceased. Okay. So we wash the person with a khirqa. Okay, we wash the person with a khirqa. Now, and we make sure that when we go to wash the awrah, is underneath that towel that we put on top of the awrah. So underneath it, we wash the awrah of that person. We have a hadith here that when we look at the way that the Prophet ﷺ is being washed, the Prophet of Allah, there was a special case. Okay, so when he died, companions didn't know, do we strip him out of his clothes or do we keep his clothes on him? So when they were differing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put slumber upon them and they slept. Each one of them, even his chin was in his chest like that, sleeping. And then a caller called them from beside the house, like an angel. They don't know what is this caller. They don't know who is he. They saying to them, wash the Prophet ﷺ with his clothes on. So they stood up, went to the Prophet ﷺ, and he washed him while his shirt is on top of him. So they used to put the water on top of his clothes, which is like the thobe, right? And they will use this thobe itself to wash his body. Okay, so they're putting their hands on top of the thobe, and they start washing on top of the body of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, لو استقبلت من أمري ما استدبرت. If I knew what's going to take place, I don't know the ghaib. No, and if I had the matter in my hands, no one would wash the Prophet of Allah except for his wives. Except for his wives. Okay? So this is to show that the Prophet ﷺ is a special case, number one. Number two, that the companions, they are having the etiquette of always, when the person dies, they want to wash him, they'll strip him out of his clothes. That's why they were disputing. Do we do the same thing with the Prophet of Allah like we do with the other deceased? Or he's a special case? So he was a special case. Now, and also we learn from this that the women are allowed to wash their husband and vice versa. طيب. Now we're going to number 11, according to the Shaykh Rahmatullah Ali says. Now he says that there is an exemption here from that, and that is the muhrim. Muhrim is the one who dies in the state of ihram, whether it's in Hajj or Umrah. For verily, it is not permissible to give him the perfume. So we're not supposed to use in the last wash, that is the camphor, because of the hadith, which is of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, for the person who dies in a state of ihram, لا تحنطوه, do not put some sort of hanut, which is the طيب. لا تطيبوه, لا تحنطوه, that means don't put the perfume onto him, don't put the camphor onto him. For verily, on the day of resurrection, this muhrim will be sent in a state of ihram. And the person in a state of ihram, I'm talking about the male here, of course, and the female, of course, there is no, we don't, even the female, but the male, she's not, the female is not allowed to put perfume anyway when she comes out, but the male, if you're in the state of ihram, he is not supposed to perfume himself. Same thing when he dies, we will wash him, but without putting any perfume or camphor in the last wash. Also, he says that there is an exemption here from number 9, and that is regarding, which we said, the male washing the male, female washing the female, is that the husband can wash the wife, and the wife washes the husband. Here he finds the hadith that we have mentioned, hadith Aisha, that no one, if I had the matter in my hand, no one would wash the Prophet ﷺ except for his wives. And the other one, which is the hadith, also from Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that the Messenger ﷺ came back to me after he had attended a janazah in al-Baqi', and I had a headache in my head. So I was saying, oh my head, oh my head. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, no, it is actually me. I should say, oh my head, oh my head. So Aisha, what about, this is not going to harm onto you, going to come to you that if I to die before you, okay, sorry, if you to die before me, and I give you a wash, and I will shroud you, and I will pray upon you, and I will bury you. So when the Prophet ﷺ, he saw that Aisha radiallahu anha, she's having a headache, so he's basically giving a gesture of saying that, well, you know, it's like my headache. It's like I've got a headache. Because if you got a headache, it's like it's me. Because if you are experiencing pain, I'm experiencing pain because you're experiencing pain. So, and then he says to him, what about, it doesn't matter, if you die before me, I will wash you. That means it's allowed for the husband to wash the wife. And I will shroud you, and I will pray upon you, and I will bury you. Continuation of this hadith, and Aisha, she said, I'll bet that you're going to go to your other wife to make an intercourse with her. And the Prophet smiled, basically saying, I mean, what should I do? I mean, it's not like saying it is allowed, even on the same day and the same night that you bury your wife. If you have another wife, you could marry another wife if you wish. So there's no such thing that there is a iddah upon the man. There's a iddah on the female if her husband dies, but there's no iddah on the man. And it's not out of disrespect if he goes to intercourse with his second wife. It's not out of disrespect as well if he goes marry another woman, okay? Because he's not being married to the mother of the believers anyway. The one whose wife has died, he wants, to satisfy himself by having another wife. And basically, when the husband is married, he is like a baby, a big baby. The wife, she looks after him so much that the husband, he feels that his wife, she's gone. SubhanAllah, everything's gone. So he needs somebody to substitute as quickly as possible. He can't do his things, he can't do his cooks, he can't even iron his clothes, he can't do anything. Basically, if his wife is gone, the man is in a mess. That's why they say that if the man is, mashallah, good, that means behind him is a good wife. If the man is messed up, either he's got no wife or his wife is no good. Okay, the other one, which is Sheikh Al-Albani, says that the person who takes priority of washing the deceased, the one who knows about the sunnah the most, especially if he's from his relatives. Because the ones who had taken care of washing the Prophet ﷺ himself when he died is like Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. Ali, he said, the Prophet of Allah ﷺ is being, I washed the Messenger of Allah. And I was looking at him just like looking at the person who is dead. I just want to know what is the difference between dead and alive. Verily, he was just alive, whether he is dead or alive. he was like fresh. Whether he was alive or he's dead is the same for me. He was looking at him. It's like sleeping, basically. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Ali ibn Abi Talib, he had combined two things into him: a relative, cousin of the Prophet of Allah, and number two as well, he knows about the sunnah of the wash. Now, the person who does the wash, he will have a mighty reward. But this mighty reward is conditioned with two. Number one is that you make sure that you do not disclose these things that you see when you wash, especially if you see something which is bad. For the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Man ghassara musliman, he who washes a person who's a Muslim who died, fakatama alayh, he did not disclose the thing that he had seen from his wash, ghafara Allahu lahu 40 marra. Allah will forgive for him 40 times. So here Allah will forgive for him 40 times. So the person who washes a deceased, as long as he makes sure that he does not disclose what he had seen. Second condition is that he seeks Allah's pleasure with that wash. He's not seeking something to do for them in the dunya. He's not seeking wages. Okay, so he's doing it for the sake of Allah, free of charge and for the sake of Allah. Okay, and that's why we have lots of hadith regarding this issue and lots of ayat, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Bayyinah, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ, that they have been commanded to worship Allah alone and sincere to Him in His religion. So sincerity is very important. It's hadith number 1 in Sahih al-Bukhari. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. All actions are based upon intention. And each person, he will have what he had intended. So whatever your intention is there, you will be rewarded accordingly. Also, hadith Abi Umama radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ had a man coming to him and asked the Messenger of Allah, if a person went to fight for the sake of Allah, but he was seeking not just, he was seeking as well the ajr or dhikr, that he was seeking as well, he was seeking the wages, you know, and also seeking the mentioning, that the people would mention him, you know, in the dunya, you know, he was a shaheed and he was a hero. Prophet he said nothing for him, and he repeated that 3 times. He will get nothing. And then he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَقْبَلُ مِنَ الْعَمَلِ إِلَّا مَا كَانَ لَهُ خَالِصًا وَابْتِغِيَ بِهِ وَجْهُ. And that is أو ابتغى وجهه or وابتغي به وجهه. And that is, Allah Azza wa Jal will not accept from the actions of a slave except what it is sincere to him. I mean, there is no, there's nothing there for example, for the human being. There's nothing there for fame. It's actually for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many ahadith regarding this. When the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is hadith al-Qudsi, that Allah, the Almighty said, أَنَا أَغْنَى الشُّرَكَاءَ عَنِ الشِّرْكِ. أَغْنَى الشُّرَكَاءَ عَنِ الشِّرْكِ. What does that mean? I am the most self-satisfied, Allah says, from the shirk, from the polytheism. He who does an act, yet he associates somebody with me, I will leave him on his shirk. That means I will not give you anything. Right. Now, also, from the etiquette of washing the deceased, that is, when the person washes the deceased, it is recommended for him to have a wash. And the one who carries him, then, on his shoulder, then it is recommended for him to make a wudu. So, we say that the person who washes the deceased, recommended, not compulsory. Well, what is the proof for that? The proof for that, basically, is hadith number 1, that is, لَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ غُسْلٍ فِي غُسْلِ مَيِّتِكُمْ غُسْلٍ. There is no compulsion upon you. You're not being compelled. You're not being forced. It's not mandatory upon you if you had washed your deceased to have a wash. For verily, your deceased is not impure. Is not najis. Okay? Is not impure. So it is just enough for you to wash your hands. Second one, which is hadith Abdullah ibn Umar, he said, we used to wash the deceased. Some of us used to have a wash, complete wash. Some of them did not. And this is as well by Ad-Daraqutni, which is authentic. طيب. Now, what is the hadith that says it's a must? The hadith that says the must, which is a hadith in Sunan Abi Dawood, that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ghassala mayyitan falyaghtasil." He who washes a deceased, let him have a wash. وَمَنْ حَمَلَهُ فَلْيَتَوَضَّأ. And he who does carry him, let him make wudu. Because of that hadith, it looks like it's compulsory. But because of the hadith that I mentioned before, it shows us that it's not compulsory. As the Prophet said, it's not compulsory upon you if you wash a deceased to have a wash. Because your deceased is not a najis, it's not impure. For that, it's enough for you to wash your hands. Type. Now, do we wash everybody? No. For that, it is not permissible for us to wash the shaheed. And here the shaheed is only the shaheed of the battle. Not the one who has the rank of a shaheed, like the person who dies from pandemics, or the person who dies from the ta'un, of course, the person who dies, for example, from burning, the person who dies from drowning. All of those have the rank of a shaheed, but they're not like the shaheed of the battlefield. So if this shaheed, he dies in the martyr, if he's to die in the battlefield. Now I can't say he's a shaheed, but he is, inshallah, we'll hope for shahada for him, but he is a person who died in the battle. Even he was on a sexual defilement. Let's say that he left his wife and he started fighting for the sake of Allah and he was killed. We're not allowed to wash it. What is the proof for that? First one, Hadith Jabir radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ said, Idfunuhum fi dima'ihim. Bury them in their blood. And that happened on the day of Uhud. So they buried them without a wash. And then he said, Ana shahidun ala haula. I am a witness, Prophet ﷺ, upon those. So Prophet of Allah, he witnessed that they gained the martyrdom. For verily there is not a single wound that he has been wounded in this battle for the sake of Allah. That is, it will come on the day of resurrection, and his wound is still there, but the color is the color of the blood that comes out, yet the smell is the smell of the fragrance, smell of the musk. Subhanallah. So his wounds will come. This shaheed will come with his wounds there and stabs and all of that. The color is coming, is blood, but it's not blood. But the smell that comes out of it is the smell of the musk. So this is to show us that the person who dies as a shaheed is not to be washed. Also, the hadith which talks it really in a blunt and explicit, لا تغسل, don't wash them, for verily every wound would exude musk on the day of resurrection. So he did not wash them, and some of them being shrouded, some of them they were not shrouded. Some of them as well had been prayed upon, some of them hadn't been prayed upon. So the shaheed has different things. The wash is not permissible. The shroud is not compulsory. And the salah is not compulsory. Why? He tells us this is a concession from Allah to us when we are in a battle. Imagine that it's incumbent upon us to wash every shaheed, and to shroud every shaheed, and to pray upon every shaheed, and to even bury every shaheed in a single grave. It will be too much for us, because the death toll or the killing toll in a battle is going to be too many. So we're not allowed to wash him, and optional. It is not compulsory to shroud him, not compulsory to pray upon him, and not compulsory to bury him in one grave. You could bury 1, 2, 3 people in one grave next to each other. Subhanallah. That's concession from the Almighty Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Because in the battlefield, as I said, there will be lots of people being dead, killed. طيب. We have also another hadith from Abu Barza radiallahu anhu wa arda. He said that the Prophet ﷺ, he was in a fight, in a battle, and Allah Azza wa Jal gave him the wubuti. And he said, do you miss anybody? He asked the companion. He said, yes, so and so and so. And they mentioned lots of people. But he asked again, do you miss anybody? He said, no, Messenger of Allah, except for those who I have mentioned. He said, no, but I miss somebody's called Julaybi. Julaybi is a person basically who is, if you see him, you keep away from him. Because he's not nice looking in terms of his face wise. And in terms of tribe wise, he's not from a big tribe. And that is why one day the Prophet ﷺ, he came to a family and he said to the father, he said to her, well, you've got a daughter? He said, yes. He said, okay, I'm asking for her hand for marriage. He said, for you, Messenger of Allah, go ahead. You're welcome. He said, no, not for me. I'm asking her hand for Julaybi. He said, Julaybi, let me confer with her mother. So he went to the mother, his wife. So he said to her, Prophet of Allah asked for the hand of our daughter. She said, for him, MashaAllah, Alhamdulillah, ala rahbi wal sa'. Welcome. He said, no. He asked her hand for Julaybib. She said, Julaybib, because nobody wants Julaybib. Basically, the daughter, she was listening. And she said to her father and mother, are you rejecting a request from the Prophet ﷺ? Are you saying that the Prophet of Allah had suggested that person and you are not accepting? To their father and mother. For verily, I will go ahead with this offer. So mother accepted, the father accepted, and then the Prophet ﷺ, he was pleased with that, and he got them to be married together. And then Allah's Messenger, he made a supplication for this man, this Sahabi Julaybib. Allahumma subba alayhi al-mala sabba. O Lord, make him to have the money comes onto him like a shower in abundance. Okay? And he was one of the richest people after this dua of the Prophet ﷺ. And also he said, put the barakah into their marriage. And their marriage was Mubarak, mashallah. Julaybib, his face was not really that beautiful, but yet his heart was beautiful. So to show those sisters who are looking for beauty, sometimes you have a beauty in the face, but ugliness in the heart. Yes, beauty is important, but it's not as important as in the heart. This lady, she's a Sahabiya woman, she had sacrificed that beauty for the sake of the Prophet of Allah, said, I suggest this for you. So she can't find better suggestion than the suggestion of the Prophet. Straight away she accepted the offer without even had a look at Julaybib from her father and her mother. They said, Julaybib, it can't be. So here the Prophet of Allah had Julaybib with him in the battle. In this battle that he went. So he was asking, do you miss anybody? Companions started, said, yeah, we miss so-and-so, but they never mentioned Julaybib because Julaybib is not that important. But it is important for Allah and His Messenger. He said, but I miss Julaybib. Ana afqidu Julaybib. Go and look for him. So they started looking for him. He was not seen basically until that. But actually, they found him next to 7. Of those 7, they are almost on top of him. So they got him out of the 7. Okay. So basically what happened is that he had killed 7 and they killed him after that. So they brought him to the Prophet. He said, he killed 7 and then they killed him. For verily he is from me and I am from him. He is from me and I am from him. Subhanallah. He is from me. هذا مني وأنا مني وأنا منه. I am from myself and I am from him. He said it 3 times, the Prophet ﷺ. And then he stretched his arm, the Prophet ﷺ, like this, and they put Julaybib on his arm like that. And he says there is no bed for Julaybib except for the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. He was holding him like this. He was short, and that's why it's not really. And the Prophet was powerful, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they dug for him the grave, and the Prophet ﷺ, laid him down in the grave. And he does not mention any wash. The whole story is to say there is no wash for that deceased. But of course, I have grabbed this opportunity just to shed light upon this Julaybib, whose companion, short and not beautiful in his face, yet he is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having the testimony of his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he is a man from Jannah. Shaheed. Not just Jannah, Shaheed. Also, we have from the proofs that the martyrs not to be washed, the martyrs of Uhud, they were not being washed. They were, all of them, they were buried with their blood. Some of them, they were not prayed upon them. Some of them, they were prayed upon them. Okay? Abdullah ibn Zubayr, radiallahu anhu, told us about the martyrdom of Handal ibn Abi Amr. For verily, he said that the Prophet ﷺ said, verily, your friend, that is Handala, he's been washed by the angels. Go and ask his wife. So she said, verily, he left while he was on Janaba. What does that mean? He left was in his Janaba. That means he was making intercourse with her, and he did not have time to have a ghusl. And she said, as soon as he had heard the call for jihad, he left, and he did not have time for wash. So the Prophet said, that is why the angels had given him a wash. The angels had given him a wash between heavens and earth, not on the earth. They gave him a wash, and he could see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahu Akbar. What a death for Hanbala radiallahu anhu wa arda. طيب, now, alhamdulillah, we finished the washing of the deceased. We're going to go to the takfir al-mayyit, which is the shrouding of the deceased. Just let me show that I haven't really missed anything here. No, alhamdulillah. طيب. After we wash the deceased, we must shroud him, save, of course, the shaheed of the battlefield. And we have mentioned the proofs for that before. And this, basically, the cost of the shroud, cost of the funeral process, all of it is to be taken from the deceased inheritance, the deceased estate, what he left behind. Even if he had left nothing except for that shroud, or the money that would be enough for the shroud, it will be used for the shroud. Nothing will go to the heirs. So when the person dies, the prioritization goes to the following. Number one, okay, number one, the funeral procession. So any money goes to the funeral procession. Number two, the debts. And the debts have got categories. Number three, the will. Number four, the last one, the heirs, the inheritors. Khabbab ibn al-Arat radiallahu anhu, he said, we made a migration with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the sake of Allah, seeking the bounty of Allah Azza wa Jal. For verily, he who dies amongst us, then his reward unto Allah Azza wa Jal. From these people who had been martyred, Mus'ab ibn Umair, he was killed on the Battle of Uhud. There was nothing left for him because he migrated from Mecca to Medina, and he was nothing, having nothing with him. And he left only a namira, which is like a something that you wrap yourself with. So this namira is like a blanket, goes on top of him. So if we put it on his head, his feet will show. And if you put it on his feet, his head will show. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, cover his head, and his feet, cover them with al-idkhir. Al-idkhir, which is a grass, which is known to be that grows and it's got nice smell. Okay. So here we find Mus'ab ibn Ubayy radiallahu anhu, one of the two great companions who are in the battle, which is Hamza ibn al-Muttalib and Mus'ab ibn Umayy. When we go to the Uhud, mountain of Uhud, when we find those 70 were martyrs, we will find like two graves stepping out. They say that these two graves for Hamza and Mus'ab ibn Umayr. For verily, we have Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, who had said, even though that he is from the 10 companions being given glad tidings of paradise, he said, Mus'ab ibn Umayr died before me and he's better than me. So Mus'ab is better than Abu Ubaidah is better than him. But because these 10 companions being given glad tidings of paradise, so they have to be the best. But there are ones who died before, like Mus'ab ibn Umayr, who is being to be reckoned better than some of those in the 10. Of course, save the 4 Khalifas. Abu Bakr first, then Umar, then Uthman, then Ali. No dispute. These are the 4. In terms of between Uthman and Ali, most of the scholars, they said Uthman is better. But if you said Ali is better than Uthman, and this is a saying. But in terms of Khilafah, Abu Bakr, then Umar, then Uthman, then Ali. You have to understand that. Right. So we understand now that the shroud is to be from the money of the deceased. This shroud, we said that it's supposed to be covering the whole of the body. So it's not just because at the time of the battle they didn't have enough. But anyway, you could bury the deceased without the shaheed in his clothes. You bury him in his clothes because there's no washing. So you shroud on top of the clothes. So the person who dies normally, he would be having no clothes. So we have to have shroud to cover all his body, from head to toe. For verily, Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made a khutbah in which he had mentioned a man, and he had basically died, and he was given the shroud, but the shroud was not enough, and he was buried in the night. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, basically he had mentioned that this is not really the correct way and the procedure to do it, and that is to bury the person during the night, unless it has been it's a necessity. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, if you make a kafan to your brother, then make the shroud to be good. فَلْيُحَسِّنْ كَفَنَ, make it good. And another narration, for verily you're going to be resurrected with your shroud. We know that from the hadith of Aisha, you're going to be naked when you are going to the mahshar. When you're resurrected, you're going to be naked. How can we reconcile here? Well, when you come out of the grave, you'll come out with your shroud. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, حَسِّنُوا أَكْفَانَ مَوْتَاكُمْ, beautify the shrouding of your deceased, for verily they will be resurrected in it. But when you go, after this coming out, after that, when you go to when the sun comes very close and all of that, that is the time when you're going to be, in the stages of their resurrection, you're going to be naked. And nobody will be looking at another person. So the first thing you're going to come out with the shroud, according to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. طيب, when we say beautify the shroud, we mean beautified in terms of being clean, okay, and being covering the person, okay, covering in proper way. So it's covering, like for example, you put half a meter or more than his head, and half a meter, because you want to wrap him properly so it doesn't show. But it doesn't mean you give him a prince dress or very expensive silk cloth. That's extravagance. For verily, the worst of extravagance to be done when the person dies. I mean, enough extravagance for him when he was alive. Enough pride and arrogance when he was alive. Now we want to give him pride and arrogance and extravagance after his death. SubhanAllah. So we should not, when we say beautify the shroud, it means make it clean and make it as well properly covering the deceased. Now, if the shroud is not big enough, we couldn't get anything more, then we will cover his head, and whatever is left from his feet or his body, from his legs, we will put the grass on top of it, which is the grass, as I said, the one which got the nice smell. Whatever you can, you cover the rest. So if you haven't got the idkhir to put there, and this is basically, maybe we cannot envisage it in this time, because everybody, mashallah, is well enough to go and buy a piece of cloth. When I'm saying that a person shroud is from his money, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to bring a shroud from yourself. No, you're allowed. For verily, we're going to see in a minute, inshallah, the hadith of Safiya, the auntie of the Prophet ﷺ, the mother of Zubayr ibn Awam. She had as well brought a shroud for her brother Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet. So she brought him a shroud. So it doesn't mean that the shroud has to be from the person's money, but we say that if there's nobody to pay the shroud, this shroud comes from the money of that person. And remember, the shroud doesn't cost that much. But what costs a lot these days is the burial, the grave, and all of that. And all of that to be taken from the estate before we start giving to the heirs and the people who are inheritors. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said regarding Mus'ab ibn Ubayr, if you remember, cover his head and leave whatever is exposed from his feet. Do put the grass on top of it. Also, we have Khabbab, when he had cauterization 7 times, and he said, hadn't been, I've heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, no one is to wish for the death. No one to wish for the death. I would have wished for it. If the Prophet, had the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, don't wish for death, I would have wished for it because it was in pain. And I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I do not even own any dirham or nothing, no money. And then, for verily, I have 40,000 dirham. So it was brought to him the kafan, which is the shroud. When he saw it, he started crying. He said, verily, Hamza, he didn't have a kafan. Hamza, when he died, there was no shroud for him. There was nothing there. His sister, okay, Safiya, she brought it. And it was this kafan which he brought to him as well, to Hamza, radiallahu anhu. She brought 2 pieces. Okay, so Zubayr took the 2 pieces and he wanted to bury Hamza with them. And he saw another person whom they did not mention his name, from the companions, who was killed as well in the Battle of Uhud. They were shy to give the 2 layers for Hamza, okay, and leave the other person without it. So they decided to give one to one of them and the other one to Hamza. And they did not favor Hamza with the better one. No, they made qura. Which one is this? Is for Hamza or this is for Hamza? And the one that came for Hamza, it was the shorter one. So they gave Hamza that shorter one, and the longer one given to the other person. So he was crying, Khabbab, he said that Hamza, okay, radiallahu anhu, he's got so much money, this Khabbab, he said 40,000 dirham. Okay, so and he sees his kafan, he says, subhanAllah, this kafan is, mashallah, it's long for me. He sees it because the person, he could bring his kafan and his shroud to be ready with him. When you look at it, he crying and said, Hamza did not have that. He had a burda, just like a cloak. If we put it on top of his head, his feet would show. If we put it in his feet, his head would show. Subhanallah. طيب. Now, if we have lots of people who died, and okay, and we have only one piece of shroud, so we could make that piece of shroud cut into pieces to cover as much as we can from those deceased. And the person as well needs to know that if it's to do with burial as well, we could bury them in one grave, just like they're doing at the moment in Garden of Peace. They're digging a trench. And the burying, because of the pandemic, they're having about, I don't know, 50 deaths a week now. SubhanAllah. So they're burying with a piece of wood in between each person. طيب. Now, the person who goes first next to the Qibla direction, we talk about the burial, is the person who's got Quran more than the other. So the more hafiz, the more you're going to be honored even after your death. As for the person who is having the part of the shroud, so we have, for example, one piece of shroud, and we have a number of people who are dead, we give the one who knows more Quran, okay, we make the person who's more Quran to be next to the person who is knowing more Quran, who will be next to the Qibla direction. As for the shroud, we'll be drawing lots, unless we divide them into halves, and you have to make sure that we don't shroud them together. So we don't put 2 bodies and with one piece of cloth. That's not correct. So each one will be separate, okay, but he will have a piece of that shroud just to cover his awra and cover. In this case of the martyrs, basically they are buried with their clothes. But the problem is when we have a pandemic, where lots of people died, and we have to cover their awra, we have a few pieces of cloth. So we will give as much as we can just to cover the awra, and then we bury them, and that would be enough, inshallah. طيب, let's go talk about the hadith of the day of Uhud. For verily the Prophet ﷺ, he passed by Hamza, and his nose was being cut off. Remember, he was mutilated. And he said, verily, had it been Safiya, he said that she's his auntie, and he doesn't want her to be upset, I would have left Hamza like that, so that the vultures will eat him. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla will gather him from the bellies of these vultures and those beasts. So he had covered him with a namira, which is a cloak that if you cover your head with it, his feet would show, and vice versa. If you cover your feet with it, his head would show. And he did not pray on those who had died in Uhud except for him. And then another narration says that he prayed on as well with him. So they prayed on him, and he put some deceased behind him as well to pray on them as well. And the Prophet ﷺ also, he told the companions to bury the 2 and the 3 in one grave. طيب. Also, it is not allowed, we said, to uncover the martyr. We're not allowed to uncover him. We have to bury him with his clothes on. And when you make the shrouding is to be a minimum of 1. So we said the washing is minimum 3. The shrouding is minimum 1 cloth. Okay. And the maximum is 3. So it's minimum 1 and the maximum is 3. Right. So now some people think that the woman has more than 3. That's not correct. And they give the hadith of Layla bint Tuqa'if al-Thaqafiyya, which that the Prophet of Allah, she had been shrouded with 5 pieces of cloth. This is incorrect. So we find that it is 3. Okay, the minimum is 1, and 3 is the maximum. So you could make it 2 if you wish, no problem. 2 pieces. There's no here witr like the ghusl, the odd number. And 3 is the maximum, even if it's a woman. And also, there's no such thing that the shroud is to be cut into pieces like trousers and shirt. Like some of the people I've seen them put this, to give a 1 piece, a second piece. No, it's a piece of cloth like that. Okay, piece of cloth. So let's say about 2 meters width. I would say 1.5 meters width. That's much enough. And in terms of length wide, it depends how tall he is. So if he's 1.7, 2.5 meters, to make extra from this side and extra from that side. But not too much as well to make extravagance in it. Also, that is the person who dies in the state of ihram, he will be having the shroud of his, that is the male, of his ihram clothes, which is the 2 towels that he's got. So he will be giving that, and that's it. Because he's going to be sent as a resurrected, as a mulabbi. So everybody will be coming out of the grave in a way which is terrified. He will be saying, Talbiya labbaik, Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik. Just like we said, he's not allowed to be scented. Remember the perfume when we wash him? As well, we have the shrouding of his, okay? The shrouding of his, we will make sure that as well, that it's from his clothes. Now, there is things which are recommended in the shrouding. Number 1 is to be white. Okay, this is the best for the Prophet. He said the best of your clothes is the white, and shroud your deceased with them. Okay, so no problem if there's white cloth and there is stripes which are black ones, which is the same thing that the Prophet ﷺ, he had 3 pieces of cloth, Yamaniya from Yemen, and in which he had habira in it. Like habira means one of the cloth is that habira, which like got lines into it. But the overwhelming color is the white. The overwhelming color is the white. You have to know that. Okay. Right. Also from the things which is recommended, we said, is that, so number 1, we said the first one is to be white. Number 2 is to be 3. So the best is to be 3. Minimum is 1, recommended to be 3. The third one, if you can have one of them, one of these 3 cloths, is that habira. Habira, which is the stripes, which is on that one, but the overwhelming color is white. So one of them is to be habira. And the 4th recommended act is the scenting, so to put bakhur. Bakhur on the last one. The bakhur, it could be the incense, or you could bring alcohol-free perfume and throw it on the last, on the shroud itself. So you put, like I do myself, I just shroud and I put perfume onto the shroud to make it just instead of the incense, because we don't have incense burners normally when we have a deceased had died. Now if we have incense burners, we can make it 3 times. So we can tajmeer 3 times. That is except again for the person who died in a state of ihram. Okay, so state of ihram is not to be perfumed while he's washed. Is not to be perfumed even in a shroud. He's not allowed as well to be. He's to be shrouded with his own cloths. And also when we something else as well. When we as well shroud the person who's got the state of ihram, we will not allow to cover his head. Subhanallah. So he's still in state of ihram. So the other person, but this person, we do not cover his head. Now we're not allowed, as well we said, to make the shroud is too much money. It has to be from average. Cannot be too much expensive. So we should not be boasting about the shroud of such and such and shroud of such and such. Okay, well, alhamdulillah. Now this is now basically have come to the end of our talk, which is talked about the washing and the shrouding. If you have any question regarding what we have heard, and priority goes, as I said, to the Greenwich, but also we want the question to be focused onto the deceased at the moment. But for the people from Greenwich, we are not allowed to ask anything we like, but we want to focus upon this topic. Jazakumullah khairan. After the first 10 minutes, we'll go to everybody. Bismillah. So, did you brief them? Yes, yeah, Sheikh Zahid?
Yes, I did. But just to remind you, mainly mic questions only and sisters on chat only. And please raise your hand. And as the Sheikh said, is Greenwich the same as Woolwich as well?
Yeah,
Woolwich?
Greenwich is Woolwich.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions from sisters from Woolwich. If a woman's menses finish at Isha time, does she also have to perform Maghrib?
So we started with the question, which is not out of the topic because of Woolwich. Okay, again, so the question?
If a woman's menses finishes at Isha time, does she also have to perform Maghrib?
Yes. Any woman who her menses had finished at a time of the two prayers, let's say, for example, she finished at Asr. She prays Dhuhr and Asr. Because Dhuhr and Asr becomes one. This is Hadith Abdullah ibn Abbas. Any woman finishes her menses at Isha, she prays Maghrib and Isha. And that's the Hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, and there is nobody else to oppose him. Okay, so she will pray the two prayers. Now, Jazakallahu khairan for that. Because Maghrib and Isha becomes one for her.
Okay. If you're from Woolwich, if you raise your hand and please put Woolwich in or Greenwich in your name, and then you'll get priority. If
your menses as well finished after sunrise, there is no Fajr on you. The Fajr in its own. No.
Okay, another question from a sister. Can a woman enter the graveyard on the day of the burial to witness the burial?
Well, Hadith of Atiyah is Sahih al-Bukhari, basically says to us that the Prophet of Allah, he told us not to follow the funeral, but he did not, press that. He did not really make it with emphasis. وَلَمْ يَعْزِمْ عَلَيْنَا. So we say that the woman, she's allowed to follow the funeral of someone who is dear to her, like, for example, her husband, her father, her son. But she needs to make sure that, number one, she's in full hijab. And there's nothing there that would displease the Almighty Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in terms of perfume or in terms of beautification and all of that. Number two, that she should not be mixing up with the men. So she could be following from far off. Okay. Not mixing for the men. We don't want the men now to go to the grave and follow the funeral, not for the sake of, the funeral and gaining reward, for the sake of, because there will be sisters coming out, let me just have a look at her. So instead of having the graveyard to remind you of the akhirah, it's reminding you of the dunya. Women are looking at men and men looking at women. SubhanAllah. So if she's in that sense, no problem. Somebody who's dear to her and to keep away from the men, not to mess with them. So it will be in her car, watching from far off, but not to stand amongst with the men and to see how the burial, and then they will be shoulder to shoulder and rubbing shoulders and rubbing chest and all of that. That's not allowed, of course. But from far off, no problem, inshallah.
Okay, no more questions on the chat. No more questions from any Woolwich or Greenwich on the mic. So I'll go to Abdullah 105.
Sheikh, regarding the tayammum for the deceased, I mean, when do you make tayammum and how do you make it? And thank you so much. Barakallahu fiqh, Sheikh.
Did you join from the beginning of the class?
Yes, I did.
So what did you understand from the tayammum for the deceased?
I mean, you didn't mention it, I believe.
I said the deceased tayammum. I don't think you were from the beginning of the class. I said tayammum for the deceased. Can anybody help me and raise up his hand and give me the answer for that question to see that were you listening or not, guys? Take their hands up. Who's going to answer the question? Ahmed Woolwich, you want to answer the question? Can anybody tell me about what did we say regarding the tayammum for the deceased? Because our brother Abdullah 105, he said I did not talk about it.
Oh.
Anybody? Subhanallah, I was talking to myself then.
Tayammum for, yes.
Yes. What did I say? What was the answer? How do we make tayammum to the deceased? Can you just take that? Can you just? I understand with you. You're asking me, Abdullah, the process of making tayammum.
Yes, Sheikh. Yes. And when do you make it?
Not the permissibility. Sorry about that, and forgive my glucose dropping down. That's why I'm not focusing. So the way to make the tayammum. Okay. Tayammum is simple. Let's say you're alive. You bring dirt. You bring a brick. You bring a tile. Even the tile which is clean, got no dust, it doesn't matter. Bismillah. Okay. Strike it. And then hands up. And then if there is dust, if it's big dust, then the face. And then the hands. That's if you're alive. Okay. Oh, somebody's dead. How do we make it? Just like we make the wudu. We say Bismillah. We're not going to ask the dead body to say Bismillah. Bismillah. We put, okay, the hands of ours onto the thing, and we wipe his face, and we wipe his hands. That's all. You're not going to expect him to make the wudu for himself. You're not going to expect him to make the tayammum for himself. So, the wudu, if you remember, we said we make him wudu. We don't say to go, come on, dead person, make his hand, wash his hands, or make his hands wash his face. Same thing with this. So we put a tile next to us. If there is dust, if there's no dust, if it's clean tile, don't do anything. This one is not really recommended. It's not really required, I should say. You take that, you put it on his face, the deceased, and then you go to his hands and you wipe it. Tayammum is finished.
And do you make it when the water is not available around to make, full ghusl for him? Is that correct?
That's the second question, but what does he say?
Sorry.
Go on.
Do you make tayammum for deceased when the water is not around? It's like the water is not available to make for
the
full
only
body.
way to make tayammum, I said, the only way is that there is no water, and number two, that is, the water is there, but the usage of it will affect the limbs. So if you put water onto him, maybe he's got his flesh is dangling. It might come out. Let's say he had a very severe accident, or for example, he's been burnt, and if you put water, his flesh might come out. No, we want it to be intact. In that case, we make tayammum for him, because we want to be minimizing the damage for the body. And in the first case, of course, there is no water, we make tayammum. But in the case of pandemic, as I said, if you are able to touch his face and touch his hand, you might as well make him ghusl. Naam.
Barakallahu fik, Sheikh. Barakallahu
fik.
Okay, Gulij Ahmed, please go ahead.
Is it right for Imam to announce about the deceased, to say, for example, to praise him, to say he was a doctor, he was the pillar of the masjid, he was good, he's that, he's this, just before Salatul Janazah?
This is exactly what the people of Jahiliyyah used to do. And this is called An-Na'i al-Jahili. To come to the masjids, and there they used to come to their places of gathering, and they start saying, oh, such and such, and oh, such and such, and oh, such and such. Now, Muslims are, unfortunately, some of them in the masajid I've seen, but I haven't seen it as a phenomenon, that they start coming, yeah, this person such and such, and this person was a doctor, and start, subhanAllah. That's boasting. The only thing which is permissible is that the people themselves, not somebody on the pulpit, the people, because we're doing like the Christians are doing. The Christian in the church, what do they do? Let this person go on top of the pulpit of theirs, and they will say, yeah, this person, he's blah, blah, he was my mate in my pub. Okay. So that's a praising for him. So we would say that Prophet ﷺ, he was some of the companions, and a buddy who's passed by, companion said, MashaAllah, he was a good person. They said it because they know it. It's not they want to boast about him. He said, MashaAllah, he's very good in religion, very good in obeying Allah. He said, wajabat, wajabat, wajabat. He's entitled for it, entitled for it, entitled for it. And then after that, another buddy passed, and they said, what an evil person he is. So he said, wajabat, wajabat, wajabat. He's entitled to it, entitled to it, entitled to it. So the companion asked Messenger of Allah. He said, wajabat, wajabat for both. What is the story? He said, verily, there is angels. Let me just take you from, because I muted you actually, because there's noise behind you, Ahmed. So he said, verily, there are angels who speak on the tongue of the sons of Adam, testifying about or saying about the good of that person or the bad of that person. Listen to me. There are angels who speak on the tongues of the human being, exposing the good and the bad in that person. And then he said also, angels are the witnesses of Allah in the heavens, and you are the witnesses of Allah onto earth. That is the only one which is allowed. Apart from that, going to the masajid. And which masjid did they do this? For example, ya Ahmed?
Greenwich Islamic Center.
Okay, Allah al-Musta'an. They shouldn't do that. Shouldn't do that.
Another question, Sheikh?
No, one question. We line up for the queue, inshallah.
Barakallah.
Even we don't have a lot of people today. Fadal.
Okay, just a reminder, now anybody can ask a question if there's nobody from Woolwich. So Abu Yusuf, go ahead, please.
Is there any specific dua for the person watching the deceased to make other than asking Allah to forgive him or her? And just another qualification.
Hang on. That's a question. Say that again. Just one question, please.
Is there any specific dua that the person watching the deceased should say repeatedly?
No specific dua. Your question is finished now. Khalas. There is no specific dua when you watch the deceased. The one after that, please. No, not you. Somebody else, please. Just one question. Didn't you say one question, Azahid?
I did.
Okay, please, can you just abide with this? If you take off your hand now and then click your hand back again to be join the queue. Fadal.
Anwar Muslim, go ahead, please.
Anwar.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam alaikum. Ya akhi, put Woolwich, like you tell everybody, put Woolwich and take priority.
طيب, inshallah, yes, I forgot. My question is outside the lectures today. The imama, we wear it on our head. When we do sujood, do we have to remove it? Or we are able to do the sujood with the imama?
So this is a imama or this is a qalanswa?
No, imama.
Doesn't matter. Imagine this is a imama.
Yes.
So who said that we should not cover our head with our imama when we prostrate? So when you say when you prostrate, make sujood, isn't it?
Yes, we make sujood. Do we have to move it or we just keep it as it is?
I'm just saying, who said that? Yes, there is a fiqh called fiqh shafi. They say that if the person, if the person, and just listen, please, jazakallah khair. If the person is having something to cover his forehead, which he prostrates upon, with something which moves with the person who prays, like the imam or the qalansuwa, they said your prayer is invalid, which is not correct fiqh. So they say that if the person covers his head, so there is no harm, for example, if you put this, okay, on top of the floor and you prostrate on top of it. You understand that? But if you put it on your head like that to move with you, and it's covered the forehead, because that's why they said when you go into the prostration, you have to make like this so that the forehead is showing. So that's why it comes, the question is for the imama. Imama is we're going to cover that. But if you did like this, no problem for them. We said even like that, there's no proof for this. So the imama or something on the floor is allowed. And for verily, what is the proof? The hadith. The companions, when they used to pray, and the masjid of the Prophet is not carpeted. So you have the heat in the lower time on those pebbles. Some of them, they said, kana ahaduna, he would extend his thobe like this, because his imam is not enough. Extend his thobe. And his thobe is what? It moves with him. Same thing as the imam. extend his toes, and he would prostrate on top of it. Do you understand that? So this hadith kills the argument which says that this is invalid, because he is now extending his own thobe, which moves with him like the imamah, to prostrate on it. If it was invalid, the Prophet would have told them, you're not allowed. Okay, so that is incorrect fiqh, because it's based upon not a solid proof, whereas the solid proof says that is, if you want to prevent something, okay, in order to invalidate the prayer, you have to have a solid proof, and there is no solid proof here. Actually, we have the contrary on that. Now,
Jazakallah khair.
Jazak.
Aman Beg, please go ahead.
Sheikh, is it allowed to keep the body of the deceased on display and delay the ghusl for people to come and see the face and etc.?
Once the person dies, we need to hasten the process of the funeral as soon as possible. So leaving him for how long? For how long? So no, you can leave him as much as we are preparing. Let's say, for example, preparing the water and preparing this, but to delay the wash, delay all of that, it's not correct. We wash him quickly, we shroud him quickly, and then at the same time, if we want to go to the masjid and we will pass on to the family to see him, no problem. We put him in the family to see him, as they did at the companions. They made one of the companions to pass on the wives of the Prophet of Allah to see him before he died, before he was buried, no problem. So, and then when you pray him, quickly to the burial. Okay, so we're not supposed to leave him exposed without washing just for the sake of it, because we want to wash him, and the body might change. The body, you know, doctors, they know that the body straight away start, decomposing. So we have to make sure that we bury him as quickly as possible. Now,
Jazakallah khair.
exactly.
Fazal Ibrahim, please go ahead.
Sheikh, is making death announcements on TV or radio allowed?
Hang on. Just before that, why Abdullah 105 is before Faisal? Was it second question for him?
It was a second question, yeah. So I'm just letting first questions go, and then.
Yeah, but let me just ask you: was he on the queue?
Yeah, he's already asked the question, but he's joined again.
Yeah, but if he joined again, how did he come before Faisal?
Because Faisal came later to ask a question.
Then you go in the order. Ask Abdullah.
No problem, inshallah.
You have to be fair and just. Sorry, Faisal. Let me
No problem.
Yeah, I know, no problem. I'm just saying because I want to Abdullah as well, because he joined on the queue.
Go ahead, sorry.
Fadal. Yalla, Abdullah.
Sheikh, regarding the wudu of the mayyit, regarding the mouth and the nose, I mean, how do you make wudu? It's like, do you have to use the finger?
The mouth of the person is closed. That's why when the person dies, we do the following: we close his eyes, and also, which is not mentioned in the book, we close his mouth. Why? We don't want him in his mouth, because so as soon as he dies, he's fresh. Do you understand me?
No.
If he gets cold, no way you're going to close his mouth. So he closes his mouth. Even some of the madhahib, they put like a
tight,
to tight his like that. You don't just jaw to go open like this. So when we wash him, we don't worry, for example, what to put our mouth. No, just put the water like this. Just put the water here and put the water in here. We're not expecting to go and tilt his head and put water on top of his head. No. We make as it says here, by the way, the hadith doesn't say make him wudu. No, it says starts with the wudu places. Do you understand the difference?
No.
It doesn't say in the hadith make him wudu. ابدأوا بميامنها وبمواضع الوضوء. You understand Arabic? Start with the right side, and this will remind him as well. So after you start with the wudu, which is the places of wudu. So the place of the wudu, right, left, the hands, face, okay, nose, mouth. So mouth, nose, face, okay, and then arms, left, right, and then head, ears, and then the feet, right and left. We finish now the places of wudu. Now we come to the right. So when we wash, divide them into two halves. First half is the right. Second half is the left. So that's what we said. So first half. So when we do the right here, we do both right here and right at the back. So the person who washes, he will wash this half, and then somebody will help him to tilt him a bit, and we'll wash the right half from the back. Then we finish. Then he goes to the left one, and then somebody will tilt him this way. We'll wash the left from this side. Okay. Jazakallahu khairan, Abdullah, for reminding us for these things as well.
These
are the practical things which are in the book. Doesn't mention them. So it would have been better to have a person to, to have a demonstration here and wash him in front of you. So first here, and then the left, right, and then we left, and then we tilt him this way. And as I said, it's not making him wudu. It is washing, and very precise words, to start with the wudu areas, wudu limbs. Okay, now.
بارك الله فيك شيخ.
جزاك الله خير. تفضل يا فيصل.
Sheikh, are death announcements allowed, such as on TV, the radio, the internet, so that the community is aware?
It is what is allowed, what is needed, not the extra. What is allowed? For example, I need to tell other people who is dead. I could put it on internet, I could put it on social media, I could put it, no problem. What is not allowed is extravagance and boasting and flattering and pride. Like, for example, in the newspaper in our countries, let's say that this is the newspaper. And it's got many pages. One page, or maybe 3-4 pages now, it's called the death. I don't know if they've got them in this country. They don't have them in this country.
You do, Sheikh.
Do you?
Yeah, you do have them in paper.
How many pages?
The local papers.
The local papers.
Yeah.
No, the other one is the main papers. Okay, the main ones, like the Guardian for you. We have that there. They'll have, because it pays a lot of money for them. So these pages, for example, no problem to go and send to them that on the newspaper there, like that much, such and such person died. Okay, that's his phone number and all of that. No problem. But what the people they do, they take half of the page with a big print. Some of them they take all of the page. Some of them take 1 page and 2 pages. And this is, for example, the brother of his, he made this one. The other brother made the other half. The son. And it's not really to do with telling the people about his death. It's to do with boasting now. So it's the same. So this page, you know how much it costs? Maybe £20,000 to fill up this page and this page to reserve it to that man who's dead. £20,000 just to announce a person's death. And it takes me peanuts. Internet, nothing. Please. Alhamdulillah. WhatsApp message. Alas. Enough. Phone call. I'm still here. I'm in debt to my Sheikh Mashur Ibn Hassan Al Salman, Hafidahullah. I'm in debt to him for the rest of my life. I had a call from him. I was in my city in Madaba when Sheikh Al Albani died. He said, run. He said, remember his word, run, catch up. The Sheikh had died. So I went, because it takes a long time for me to travel. Rahmatullah. And I caught up, alhamdulillah, from the beginning to the end. I was there before even they buried him. But he said to me, run, the Sheikh Al-Albani is there. So I was all the way from Madhab to Amman. I can't forget that for my Sheikh Mashur, rahmatullah, hafidahullah. Jazakallah khairan. Now, so that's a cheap one. Phone call, that's it.
Ahmad Wulich.
And I'll tell you what, Sheikh Al-Albani, he died just after Asr. And he was buried just after Isha. And straight away, quickly. How many? Nothing. And plus, he would have been buried even before that. But because we had to dig for his grave into the mountain, because the graveyard is next to his house, and it's a graveyard which has been deserted, nobody buries in it. But because it's the one which is next to his house, he said, don't take me to the one which is far off from the city, it's in the main city. After he was buried there, the whole graveyard was honored, subhanAllah, the whole graveyard, because of him. So they had to take permission from the municipality, and Muhammad Abu Shaqra, may Allah have mercy upon him, he's the one who taken permission for that, because nobody's allowed to be buried there, in the heart of the city. And just about, I would say, 300 meters from his house. So they've been carrying him on shoulders, which we don't do that in the other cemetery. We had to carry him in the car. This one's proper janazah. I did not catch up with this. I came after. Came to the grave. But digging the grave took about more than 2 hours, 3 hours. That's why it was delayed, because it was struck. I had to bring the compressors and all of that. And if the Sheikh was after fame, because he was not, and that's why Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, before he died, he said this person lived upon Sunnah and he refused to die except on Sunnah. That's Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen's word. He lived upon the Sunnah and he refused to be buried except on the Sunnah. If Sheikh Al-Albani's death was to be delayed to the following day. And the people to be told at that time, we're talking about the year 1999, if the people is to, you know, have just that technology that they had. They didn't have WhatsApp, they didn't have anything of that. Just the technology of phone calls. That the Sheikh will be buried, wallahi, you'll find the airport to be closed. The people who honor the Sheikh is not from their own. They're nothing, these people. They're nothing. Talking about, it would have to be maybe 3,000 people. Not that much. Not that much, I'm telling you this, not that much, 3,000. If he has to be delayed for the following day, we'll have not less than 1 million for the Sheikh Rahmatullah. Less than 1 million. That will be chaos. Yet his name was not even mentioned by Allah al-Musta'an, by our broadcasting TV. It's like nothing. But if he was a singer, a dancer, Da'it al-Fujur, they will, mashallah. He died, the singer, the pop star in one. But the Sheikh, not mentioned. But of course, with Allah. Remember Julaybib? Radiyallahu anhu. Now, I have 6 minutes left.
Ahmad Woolwich, please go ahead.
Imagine you are walking to a masjid to pray Salat al-Dhuhr. And I joined the Imam. Then I realized they are praying Salat al-Janaza. Because my intention was to pray Salat al-Dhuhr. What should I do at this moment?
So you've realized once they said Allahu Akbar and they did not go to ruku'. True or not?
Yes.
That's what you realized. So what you need to do now, change your intention. That's it. You didn't, because you are at the start still. You are at the start.
Okay.
So Allahu Akbar. خلاص, my intention is for dhuhr. So your intention is dhuhr. You started with the dhuhr. So
yes.
The people praying the janaza, okay?
Yes.
So you want to, you could just change the janaza, you are doing the dhuhr, you change the the intention to the janaza. خلاص, come janaza now.
Barakallah.
No, change it. Allah, jazakallah khair.
Okay, got a question on the chat. It's from a brother who can't ask on the mic.
And by the way, for that question as well, you could as well, if you don't want to do the janaza, you got an option for you. Because the janaza communal prayer, it's not obligatory. You could continue the dhuhr. Khalas, they say Allahu Akbar, you detach themselves with you could tanwi al-mufaraqa. Okay, tanwi al-mufaraqa. So what is tanwi al-mufaraqa? Just leave them, okay, and say Allahu Akbar on your own. Make the dhuhr. Now, fadal.
Okay, the question is regarding Taraweeh. His parents live 2 doors down the road from where he lives. Should he read Taraweeh on his own at home, or should he go? Can he go to his parents and read Taraweeh there?
Ask Boris Johnson. So I don't know. Don't know. Is that allowed? Boris Johnson allows it. Khalas, it's allowed. If it does not allow it, so I don't know. We are speaking publicly, so I don't want to be saying anything that would be against the law here. Nah.
Okay, Faisal Ibrahim again. Please go ahead.
Sheikh, off topic now, right?
Yeah.
Sheikh, this is a question that I'm still confused about, and I'm here with Asif here at his house in Florida, and we are both asking this question regarding wiping ourselves after urinating with the toilet paper. Do we have to wipe 3 times minimum with toilet paper, or is 1 time enough? So is the 3 times same as the back? Is the front side same as the back side with the 3 times minimum?
No, only the stones 3 times. Only the stones. As for the tissue, it could be only 1 tissue.
Front and back.
Could be 2 tissues. What do you mean front and back? You mean for the urination? Yeah.
And defecation.
Yeah. For both. Only the 3 is only attached, not to water, not to tissues, only to the stones. So if it's water, there's no such thing 3 waters. Okay.
Right.
You don't have to be confused regarding this issue. So if it's water, only water. It could be once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, depending on how clean you want to be. Okay. The same with the tissues. You could use 1 tissue, 2 tissues, 3 tissues, 4 tissues, 5 tissues, depending upon how much you're going to need. Because when I'm, for example, the airports and other, 1 tissue is not enough for me. Even 2, not even 3, not even 4. Because there's no water there. Do you understand me? The tissues, you need a lot. But if it's 1 tissue, it's enough. If you think it's enough, you've cleaned it. Whether it's the front or the back. As for the stones, it has to be minimum of 3. Even if you had cleaned it from the first stone, it has to be 3. Because of the hadith.
This is crystal clear to me now, Sheikh. Barakallahu feek. Thank you so much.
Abdullah 105, please go ahead.
Sheikh, off the topic, regarding the zakat, you know, now the mosque, I used to give it to the mosques here. Now the mosques are closed. I mean, what shall we give it, or do you have any idea, charities to give it to, or how do we do it now? It's like in this time.
Zakat al-Fitr?
Naam, Sheikh.
Zakat al-Fitr, it has to be going to the poor in food. So the only way to give it to the poor in food is to give it to a third party whom you trust with their amana and also their knowledge, that they will not use this money to give it to the poor person in money. It has to be as in food. So you have to shop around regarding the charities, and you could ask one of your friends, maybe he's got some link to his country where you trust him. He will give it as in zakat. Where are you from, by the way, yourself?
Algeria, Sheikh. Shall we give it back home?
Yeah, like home. Phone somebody there and give zakat al-Fitr, and then you tell him, I'll give you the money back later on. Or you could transfer it. It's not that much money anyway.
You can give it, the money, but the money later on. You give it to family later on, the money.
Oh, yeah, as long as it's a loan, debt.
What about regarding, Sheikh, the English people here, they don't have any back homes. What are they going to do regarding this one? I'm sorry about that. Sorry.
So, what about if the person hasn't got anybody back home?
Yeah, they're English, pure English, they are here. They live here.
They've got charities, the charities there. Plenty of charities. Just put Zakat al-Fitr charity on Google, they'll bring you lots of them. Check the one whom you think that they are the best ones, are more reliable. And then link the money to them. And so if these people, for example, say to the Zakat al-Fitr is £4, they know that if you paid £4, that means 1 person. If you paid £8, it's 2 people. And they know that.
Shukran, Sheikh. Barakallahu feek. Jazakallahu khair.
Jazakallahu khair. Khalas.
Okay, I think you got one more question left. Or
no, because يلا Muhammad, because I'm 6:30. يلا تفضل.
Ahmed, go ahead.
And Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. And regarding questions on the topic, is it my understanding when you're washing the disease that before you do the places of wudu, you start with the places of awrah, just like you're doing ghusl?
No, not really. You don't start with the awrah, but we said at the beginning that you tilt the person in case there is something in his stomach while you're washing, it's going to come out. So this is just to start with. But you don't wash the awrah as in like the ghusl of the normal ghusl. Okay? So you basically start with his wudu places, and then you start with his right, including the awrah, and his left, including the awrah. Okay? That's how you do it.
جزاك الله خيرا أحسن الله إليك.
جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.